She believed he was simply a quiet, elderly gentleman who couldn't afford transportation. Every morning she would stop and tell him, "Get in, no charge today." But one morning he wasn't at his usual location, and what happened next would transform her life completely. Who was this gentleman? And what secret had he been keeping all along? This is the incredible true-to-life story of Priya, a struggling auto rickshaw driver in Mumbai, and the elderly man everyone overlooked. Once upon a time in the busy and dusty streets of Mumbai, there lived a young woman named Priya. She was just 26 years old, but carried life's burdens like someone twice her age. Every morning before crowds gathered, she was already awake, sweeping the front of her building, heating water, and checking the engine of her old auto rickshaw. The auto rickshaw was her lifeline. It was old. The yellow paint had peeled off in many places. The seat was worn out. The starter made strange sounds, and the engine coughed and rattled like an old man with asthma, but it moved, and that was efficient. She tied her brown scarf tightly, wore her old black jeans, and walked to work like a soldier heading to battle. Her younger brother, Rohit, was still sleeping on the mat inside their small one-room apartment. The ceiling had cracks. The walls were stained with old rainwater marks. No fan, no television, just a mattress, a gas stove, and hopes. Priya didn't complain. She couldn't afford to. Life had taught her that crying doesn't put food on the table. So she worked every single day, rain or shine. Even when she had fever, she drove. Even when customers insulted her, she smiled. At exactly 6 a.m., she started the auto rickshaw. It coughed 3 times before the engine came to life. "Thank you, God," she whispered, pressing the accelerator. She headed to Central Station Junction, her regular starting point. People were already waiting. Some were rushing to the market, some to offices, others just wandering around. She stopped, picked up her first passengers and drove off. Business was running. She dropped people off, picked others up, collected money, gave change. Life was tough, but it was moving forward. But then something unusual happened. It was around 7 a.m. when she returned to Central Junction. As she slowed down, her eyes caught a figure under the old banyan tree near the junction. An old man. He looked tired. His shirt was loose and dusty. His trousers looked faded. One of his sandals was torn, and he was carrying a small plastic bag, the kind used to carry vegetables. His hands trembled slightly, and his eyes were sunken like someone who hadn't eaten in days. Priya slowed down and parked beside the road. People were passing him like he didn't exist. Some even looked at him with disgust. One woman hissed and said, "Look how they just stand on the road to make people pity them. Go and beg somewhere else." But the old man didn't say a word. He just stood there quietly. Priya looked at him again. Something about him felt different. He wasn't begging. He wasn't stretching out his hand. He just stood quietly. She opened her mouth and gently called, "Uncle, where are you going?" The old man looked at her, then looked away like he didn't want to cause trouble. "To the market," he said softly, "but I don't have any money." Priya looked at the 2 women already in her auto rickshaw. They were holding bags of tomatoes and onions. One of them frowned. "Please don't carry beggars with us. What if he's crazy?" But Priya ignored her. She turned to the old man and said, "Get in. No payment needed." He looked at her in shock. "Are you sure?" "Yes, uncle. Get in before someone else takes a space." He nodded slowly and climbed in, sitting at the far corner. The 2 women hissed, but said nothing else. Priya started the auto rickshaw again and drove off. As she drove, she looked at the old man through her mirror. He held his bag tightly and looked outside like someone seeing the world for the last time. When they reached the market, she stopped and turned to him. "Uncle, we've arrived." He nodded. "Thank you, my daughter," he said softly. "No problem," she smiled. He got down slowly and walked away. That day, Priya didn't think much of it. Just another poor man. Just another act of kindness. After all, what was 50 rupees compared to a human being's dignity? But the next morning he was there again. Same spot, same plastic bag, same tired eyes. She picked him up again, no questions asked. Day after day, he kept showing up. She picked him up again and again, No questions asked. Passengers complained. Some mocked her. One auto rickshaw driver told her, "You're not running a charity service, sister." She laughed and replied, "One day someone may carry me for free, too." They laughed at her. Some called her foolish. Some called her soft-hearted. But she didn't stop. She gave him a nickname, Uncle Ram. He never said much. He just said thank you and walked away every time he reached his destination. But what she didn't know was that this old man wasn't who everyone thought he was. There was something deeper behind his silence, something mysterious behind those eyes, and very soon everything would change. Priya was not sure why she continued to carry the old man every day. Maybe it was because of the way he looked at her, not with pity but with pride, with quiet respect. He never begged from her. He never begged from anyone. He just waited at the same spot every single morning, wearing the same faded shirt and holding the same black plastic bag. She had carried him for 11 days. 11 mornings of get in, no payment. And each time the old man would simply nod, step into the auto rickshaw slowly and say one word, "Thank you." That was all. But on the 12th morning, something different happened. As Priya arrived at the Central Station Junction that day, she saw him already standing under the banyan tree. But this time he wasn't alone. Two boys were standing in front of him, laughing and harassing him, trying to snatch his black bag from him. As he struggled, one of the boys said mockingly, "Old man, remove everything valuable from inside that plastic bag or you'll see what happens. In fact, you'll walk today." "Give us that bag," one of them shouted. The other laughed. "He doesn't even look decent. Look how he's dressed like a rich man." Uncle Ram didn't say a word. He just looked at the ground. Priya stopped her auto rickshaw and shouted, "Hey, leave him alone." The boys turned, surprised. "What's it to you?" one of them asked. She came down from the auto rickshaw, holding her keys tightly. "I said leave him alone." They hissed and walked away. Uncle Ram didn't even look up. He just stood still like a statue. Priya walked up to him and touched his arm gently. "Uncle, don't mind them. Do you want to go to the market?" He nodded. "Yes, my daughter." She smiled. "Let's go." As they rode through the city, something sat quietly in Priya's heart. A question she hadn't asked before. Who was this man? Why was he always quiet? Why does he never beg? Why does he never miss a day? He didn't look mentally ill. He didn't talk like someone with mental problems. His voice was slow, but clear. His eyes didn't wander. He wasn't like the other beggars on the street. Something about him was different. Before he got down, Priya turned and asked, "Uncle, where do you go every day?" He paused for a while and then said softly, "To watch." "Watch?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, just to sit and watch." She didn't understand, but she didn't ask again. That afternoon after work, she visited Mama Lakshmi, an elderly woman who sold roasted corn not far from the junction. As they chatted, Priya mentioned the old man. "You mean that quiet one who always waits under the banyan tree?" Mama Lakshmi asked. Priya nodded. Mama Lakshmi dropped her knife slowly and looked at Priya. "What?" Priya raised an eyebrow and said, "That man is strange. He's been standing under that tree for months now, even before you started carrying him." "Months?" Priya asked, surprised. She nodded. "Sometimes he just disappears for a week, then comes back. Some say he's mentally ill. Others say he's a holy man." "A holy man?" Priya blinked. "Yes," Mama Lakshmi said, cutting another piece of corn. One woman swore that after she gave him water, her sick child started walking. Another one said that her shop began selling well after giving him food. Priya looked away, confused, but he never says anything to me. He just sits quietly. "Maybe you're already chosen, my dear," Mama Lakshmi said, staring hard at her. Priya laughed awkwardly. "Mama, why are you talking like this?" Mama Lakshmi shook her head. "My daughter, be careful. Not everyone walking on the street is ordinary. Sometimes the poor man you are feeding could be testing your heart." That night as Priya lay on her bed, the words repeated in her head. "The poor man you are feeding could be testing your heart." She turned on her side and looked at Rohit, Her younger brother fast asleep beside her. She thought about their life, how hard it had been. No parents, no help, just struggles and survival. And yet here she was, still finding space in her heart for someone who had nothing. Maybe Mama Lakshmi was right. Maybe life itself was a test. And maybe, just maybe, Uncle Ram wasn't who she thought he was. The next morning, she woke up earlier than usual. She felt nervous, like something strange was coming. She just couldn't explain it, but she felt it in her bones. By 6:30 a.m., she reached Central Station Junction. He was there waiting as always. But today, as he stepped into the auto rickshaw, he looked at her and said something new. Priya. She froze. She had never told him her name. Uncle, how do you know my name? He smiled. I hear things. She swallowed hard. What kind of things? He didn't answer. The other passengers climbed in and Priya started driving, but her hands shook on the steering wheel. Who is this man? How did he know her name? What did he mean by I hear things? When they got to usual spot, he stepped down slowly and looked at her with eyes that were no longer tired, but calm and sharp. Thank you, he said as always. But this time he added, very soon you'll understand. Then he turned and walked away. Priya sat still for a moment, her hand on the key and her heart pounding. This was the first day she felt it. Not just kindness or worry, but fear. Something was coming. The sky was still dark when Priya woke up the next morning. There was no rain, but the air felt heavy, like something was about to happen. She sat on the edge of her thin mattress, listening to the silence. Even the roosters hadn't started crowing yet. She stood up quietly, not wanting to wake her younger brother. He had an exam that day. She boiled water, warmed the leftover rice from the night before, and dressed in her usual faded black jeans and red scarf. Her body moved like a machine, but her heart was far away. It had been 3 weeks since she first picked up Uncle Ram. Every day without fail, he was always there, waiting, same time, same place, same quiet face. But something about yesterday had unsettled her. The way he said her name, the way he looked at her, the way he whispered, very soon you will understand. It was like he knew something she didn't. Priya shook the thoughts away and stepped outside. She started her auto rickshaw. It made a loud coughing sound as usual, but it came alive. She whispered a short prayer. God, please go with me today. She started the auto rickshaw and drove towards Central Station Junction. It was just a little past 6:45 a.m. when she arrived, but he wasn't there. She blinked. No old man under the banyan tree. Maybe he was late. She waited till 7 a.m. Still, there was no sign of him. She drove a few rounds, picked up passengers, and then returned. Still nothing. Her chest felt tight, but she tried to smile. Maybe he's sick, she said to herself. But by noon, her worry had turned to fear. She dropped off her last passenger and returned to Banyan Tree. She came down and looked around. Excuse me, she called out to the woman roasting corn nearby. Did you see the old man that always stands here? The quiet one. The woman looked up. That one? No, I haven't seen him since yesterday. Priya's heart skipped. She crossed the road and asked the newspaper seller, Did you see that old man who usually stays under this tree every morning? The man looked confused. Which one? The one with the small black plastic bag. I always carry him in my auto rickshaw every day. Oh, okay. I know him, but I haven't seen him today. Priya climbed back into her auto rickshaw and sat for a while. Her head was spinning, and her hands were cold. Something had happened. That evening, she didn't return home immediately. She drove to the market where she always dropped him off. She parked her auto rickshaw and walked around. Excuse me, she asked the tomato seller. Do you know an old man who comes here often? Wears an old shirt, always carrying a small bag. The woman shook her head. No idea. She asked 5 more people. Nobody knew him. She stopped in front of the temple and sat on one of the steps. Her legs were weak. Her chest felt heavy like stone. And slowly her eyes began to fill with tears. He's not a ghost. So where is he? That night, Priya couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She sat in the dark room holding the scarf she once gave him during the rain. It still had a smell, a mixture of dust, soap, and something she couldn't describe. Her younger brother asked her, "Sister, are you okay?" She forced a smile. "Yes, I'm just tired." But in her heart, she was scared. 2 days later, and still no sign of Uncle Ram. She drove with eyes on the road and eyes on the corner of her mirror, hoping and praying he would appear. But the banyan tree remained empty. No old man, no plastic bag, and no thank you. She told herself that maybe he had traveled, maybe he had family somewhere, but her heart refused to believe it. That evening, something strange happened. As she parked near her building, a woman from the next building called out, "Priya, you carry one old man every morning, right?" She turned quickly. "Yes, do you know him?" The woman shrugged. "No, I just see him sometimes." "Be careful, my sister. They say there are many strange people around, some spirits in disguise." Priya forced a smile and walked away, but those words stayed in her head all night. On the third day, she sat in her auto rickshaw, waiting and watching. The tree stood still, but the bench in front of it where the man usually sat after getting down was also empty. That afternoon, she sat at the banyan tree for 1 full hour. Her auto rickshaw was turned off, her arms were crossed, and her face stared into the street like someone waiting for a miracle. People walked past and nobody noticed her, but deep down she was breaking. "Where are you, Uncle Ram? Was he dead? Was he hurt? Did someone harm him?" Tears filled her eyes. Then something happened. A small boy wearing a school uniform came running towards her. Annie, are you the one who drives this yellow auto rickshaw?" he shouted. "Yes, I'm the one," Priya responded quickly. The boy stretched out a brown envelope. "A man said I should give you this. He said you will understand." Her hands trembled. "Which man? Where is he?" The boy pointed behind him. "He was there just now. I turned and he was gone." She looked, but the road was empty. She looked back at the envelope. It had no name or address, just a plain brown paper. She slowly opened it, and inside was a white paper. 7 words only. "Come to Grand Hotel, room 204, 5 p.m. Priya stared at the words. Room 204, Grand Hotel. That was one of the biggest hotels in Mumbai. Her legs shook. She looked around. No one else seemed to notice her. She folded the paper, held it against her chest, and whispered, "Uncle Ram, what's this?" Priya sat quietly inside her auto rickshaw, staring at the white paper in her hand. Her heart was beating fast. The sun was hot, but her body felt cold. She read the note again and again. Why Grand Hotel? Why room 204? And who sent this message? Her mouth felt dry. She looked down the road again, hoping to see the boy who gave her the envelope. But he was gone. She looked at her wristwatch and realized that she had exactly 3 hours and 17 minutes. She didn't know what to do. Should she go? What if it was a trap? What if something bad would happen? She placed the key back in the auto rickshaw and slowly drove home. When she got to her building, she didn't even enter her room. She sat outside the building on a bench, deep in thought. "Priya, you're not going to work today?" Mama Sita asked when she came outside carrying a bowl of water. Priya forced a smile. "I'm resting a little, ma'am." Mama Sita sat down beside her and looked at the paper in her hand. "What's that?" Priya quickly folded it. "Nothing, just paper." But the woman was sharp. "Is this a letter from police or a customer complaint?" Priya laughed weakly. "No, nothing like that." The woman stood up. "Your face has changed since yesterday. If you ask me, you should pray first. Don't let fear catch you." Then she walked back inside. Priya was alone again. She slowly opened the paper once more. By 3:15, she stood in front of her wooden closet, picked out her cleanest clothes, a long brown skirt and a light green blouse. She took her time to brush her hair and wipe dust from her sandals. Her auto rickshaw was too dirty for where she was going, so she decided to take a taxi instead. At 3:35, she locked the door of her one-bedroom apartment and whispered a prayer. "God, please go with me." She walked down the street and waved down a passing taxi. "Grand Hotel," she said softly. The driver turned back quickly. What are you going to do there? That hotel is not for ordinary people. She smiled nervously. I have something to collect. Just take me there. By 4 minutes past 4, the gate of Grand Hotel came into view. The building was tall and shiny. The glass windows reflected the sun. The entrance had white tiles, golden doors, and 2 strong-looking security guards. Good afternoon, one of the guards said. How may we help you? Priya swallowed hard, raised a paper, and handed it over. The guard opened it, read it, and looked up at her with surprise. You're the one. She nodded slowly. Yes, sir. The man signaled another guard standing by the side. Escort her inside. A tall man wearing a black suit appeared from behind the glass doors. He looked rich and serious. Follow me, madam, he said. Priya followed him. The air inside the hotel smelled like flowers and expensive perfume. The floor was white like ice. Music played softly from somewhere she couldn't see. Her heart was beating louder than her footsteps. She looked around. Rich people, clean uniforms, and expensive bags. She felt like she didn't belong, but she kept walking. They reached an elevator. She had never entered one before. It opened silently, and they stepped inside. Room 204, the man said. He pressed a button. The lift moved. Priya almost lost her balance. Jesus, she whispered. The man smiled slightly. When the elevator stopped, the doors opened quietly. Just straight down the hall, the man said, pointing to a long corridor with red carpet. Priya walked slowly. Her palms were sweating, her legs felt weak, and her eyes scanned every door. Finally, room 204. She stopped, looked back, and the man was gone. She was standing alone in the hallway. Her hand reached for the handle. She paused and knocked. Knock, knock. She knocked again. A voice answered, calm and familiar. Coming. She pushed the door slowly, and then she froze. Her mouth opened wide. Sitting in a clean white shirt and brown trousers inside a luxury hotel room was Uncle Ram. But he didn't look like the man she knew. His hair was neatly cut. His face was smooth and fresh. His hands looked clean and strong. He was sitting in a fine leather chair beside a round table. His small black plastic bag was nowhere in sight. Priya, he said gently. Her voice cracked. Uncle Ram. He nodded. Yes, my daughter. She stepped in slowly, still unsure if she was dreaming. The door closed behind her. She looked around. The big bed, the soft lights, the clean carpet, and the glass cups. What is this place? She asked. He smiled. Sit down. I will explain. She sat slowly on the edge of a chair. Is this really you? She whispered. Yes, but I'm not who you think I am. Priya's heart was now beating faster than ever. She gripped her skirt tightly. Then who are you? He leaned forward, looked into her eyes, and said the words that would change her life forever. My name is Mr. Rajesh Sharma. I am not a beggar. I am a billionaire. The room went very quiet. It was as if time stopped just for Priya to understand what she just heard. She blinked twice, then opened her mouth. A billionaire? Yes, the man repeated, smiling gently. I am Mr. Rajesh Sharma. I own several companies across India. I build schools. I run transport businesses, and I invest in hospitals, and I live in privacy. Priya shook her head, confused. But the way you looked, the way you dressed, your plastic bag. He nodded. Yes, I dressed like that on purpose. For weeks, I wore rags, waited under that tree. I watched people. I wanted to see something. She stared at him. See what? Real kindness, he said. I've been disappointed too many times, Mr. Rajesh continued. People treat you well when you look rich. They offer you chairs and they fake their smiles. They greet you loudly. But the moment they think you are poor, suddenly you are nothing. Priya looked down at her hands. She remembered those mornings, the hisses, the insults, the way she told angry passengers to move so that the old man could sit. She raised her eyes again. So you were testing me? He nodded slowly. Not just you, many others too. I stood in that same place for months. Some people looked away. Others mocked me. One man even splashed dirty water on me. with his auto rickshaw. Priya gasped. "But you," he said, leaning forward. "You didn't just notice me. You stopped. You gave me space. You told me to get in, and you never once asked for anything." She swallowed hard. "But I didn't do it because of what you had." "I know," he said. "That's why I chose you." There was silence again. The wind outside tapped softly against the hotel window. Priya sat still, her mind racing. "But why now?" she asked. He nodded. "Because the time has come." She furrowed her brow in confusion. "Time for what?" Then for the first time, Mr. Rajesh's voice changed and it became more serious. "Priya, I need to tell you something that I haven't told anyone in years." She leaned in, her heart pounding. He took a deep breath and said, "During my early years, I was betrayed by people I once trusted. They took my money, tried to destroy my life, and left me for dead. I survived, but I stopped trusting people. Even after I rebuilt my life, I hid. I kept my face away from cameras. I traveled secretly. I hired people to represent me. Only a few knew who I really was." Priya placed her hand on her chest. "Then last year, I decided to do something unusual. I wanted to walk the streets again, not as a billionaire, but as a beggar. I wanted to see if kindness still existed." He paused. "And the truth is," he smiled, "it does, because I found you." Priya didn't know when the tears began to roll. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, still trying to believe it all. "Sir, I don't even have anything. I live in a room that leaks when it rains. I have only one brother. I drive an auto rickshaw every day. And that is what makes your heart beautiful," he said. "You gave even when you didn't have enough. You shared your seat. You risked upsetting your passengers. You gave me your scarf during the rain." She laughed softly through the tears. "I remember. It was the only clean one I had." He chuckled. "And that reminded me that good people still walk this earth." He reached under the table and brought out a small leather bag. He opened it slowly and pulled out a file. Priya's eyes followed every movement. "I brought you here to bless you," he said calmly. He opened the file and pulled out a sheet of paper. "This is a deed of ownership. You now own a brand new auto rickshaw from Premier Motors." She covered her mouth. "Jesus." He brought out a second paper. "And this is a full education scholarship for your younger brother from high school up to university, paid in full." Priya broke down crying. She bent forward, her head on her knees, sobbing silently. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Mr. Rajesh said softly. "Your actions already spoke for you." But then he added something she didn't expect. "I'm not done." She looked up slowly. "Priya, you were not just kind, you were brave. Do you remember the day those boys harassed me at the banyan tree?" She nodded. "Yes, I told them to stop." He leaned back in his chair and sighed. "What you didn't know was that 2 of my enemies were watching me that day. They had been trying to find me again. They followed me once and almost discovered who I was." "You mean you were in danger that day?" He nodded. "That day, your boldness confused them. When you shouted at the boys, they backed away. They thought you were one of my bodyguards in disguise." Priya blinked. "I was just trying to defend you. And in doing so, you saved me. Now it's my turn." He stood up from his seat. She stood up too, slowly, as if still unsure what she was seeing. He walked gently towards her and said, "Follow me. I have something else to show you. The real gift." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Just follow me," he said again softly. And without saying more, he turned, walked to the door and opened it. 2 men in suits were waiting outside. A black SUV was parked outside the hotel, engine already running. Mr. Rajesh turned back, and with a smile on his face, he asked her, "Are you ready?" Priya took a deep breath and nodded slowly. But little did she know that the next thing she would see would leave her speechless. Mr. Rajesh walked calmly towards the SUV. One of the bodyguards opened the door for him. He turned back and smiled. "Come in, Priya." She walked slowly, still trying to understand what was happening. As she stepped into the car, she sat beside him, holding her skirt tight with both hands. The leather seat hugged her body gently. It smelled of wealth. "Where are we going, sir?" she asked quietly. To show you the second part of your reward, he said with a calm voice. The SUV moved. Priya looked out of the window as they drove through Mumbai. They passed her street, her small building with the rusted gate. She saw it flash by like a memory. She bit her lip and looked down. She was leaving that life behind. But for what? After about 30 minutes of smooth driving, they entered a clean part of the city. The roads were fresh. The houses were painted. The street lights stood tall like proud soldiers. Then the car turned into a large compound. As they entered, Priya gasped. In front of her stood a tall, beautiful building with glass walls, golden handles on the doors, white marble floors outside, flower gardens neatly trimmed, and a huge glowing signboard. She read the sign out loud. Priya Transport and Logistics. Speed with heart. She clapped her hand over her mouth. She turned to Mr. Rajesh. Is this a joke? He smiled gently. No, my dear, it is yours. She shook her head, trying to catch her breath. Mine. He nodded. Yes, a Rayal registered transport business in your name. 5 new auto rickshaws, 3 drivers already employed, uniforms, company office, logo, bank account, customer hotline, and even a website. Her knees buckled. She sat back in the car. Tears filled her eyes. Mr. Rajesh looked out the window at the building. You are no longer just an ordinary auto rickshaw driver, Priya. You are a business owner. You manage the fleet, supervise the drivers, and grow the company, and I'll support you with my team until you can stand on your own. Priya could not speak. She was crying softly. But I don't know how to run a company. He reached into a small briefcase and pulled out another document. This is your 3-month business mentorship plan. My team will train you. You will learn management, customer care, financial control, and leadership. She shook her head slowly. This is too much. Mr. Rajesh held her hand gently. No, Priya, it's just enough for a heart like yours. They stepped out of the car. The drivers and bodyguards stood quietly in place, watching. The building doors opened automatically as they approached. Inside was even more beautiful. Cool air, clean tile, golden lights, and a small reception desk with a glowing sign behind it. Welcome, Ms. Priya, COO. Priya burst into tears again. A woman in a smart suit walked towards her. Good evening, ma'am. I'm your assistant manager. I'll help you settle in. Priya stood there trembling. Then she turned to Mr. Rajesh. Why me? She whispered. He smiled. Because you gave me dignity when I had none. You offered me shelter when I had nothing. You didn't know who I was, yet you treated me like a human being. That, my dear, is rare. That is gold. They went upstairs. The first office had her name on the glass. Priya, managing director. She stepped inside and found a desk, a swivel chair, books, computer, shelves, and flowers. She sat slowly in the chair, her chair. Mr. Rajesh stood beside the door. From now on, people will enter this room to greet you with respect. Not because you are rich, but because you earned it. He opened a drawer and brought out a small blue notebook. I found this in your auto rickshaw the day you forgot it, he said, handing it to her. She opened it. It was her dream journal. She used to write in it secretly. There were dreams like build my own auto rickshaw business, send Rohit to college, open free auto rickshaw driving school for women. Tears filled her eyes again. You read this? I did. And that's how I knew your heart. Now you can start turning your dreams into plans. They sat in silence. Then she asked, Is this really my new life? Mr. Rajesh nodded. Yes, it is, and it's only the beginning. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the 5 auto rickshaws parked in a line with her company name on them. Drivers stood beside them in matching uniforms. She turned back and asked, Sir, can I still drive my own auto rickshaw sometimes? He laughed softly. Of course, but now you do it as a boss. Later that evening, as she rode home in one of the black SUVs, she passed a banyan tree at Central Station Junction. She looked at it long and hard, and in her heart, she whispered, Thank you, banyan tree. Thank you for standing with me. Thank you for hiding a blessing in plain sight. That night, She sat with Rohit holding his scholarship letter and company documents. They laughed, they cried, they danced, and they prayed. Her brother said, "Sister, how did this happen?" She smiled and replied, "Kindness, Rohit, pure, simple kindness." 3 months later, Priya stood in front of her office window, looking down at the busy compound below. She had added 2 new auto rickshaws the previous week. She smiled. She was now 27 years old, but her life had changed more in the 3 months than the last 10 years combined. She didn't live in the one-room house anymore. Mr. Rajesh had given her a 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood. It had all the facilities needed to make life comfortable. Her younger brother Rohit had started school again. The day he wore his uniform for the first time in years, he knelt down and said, "Sister, one day I'll buy you a car too." She hugged him through tears. The workers in her company respected her and called her Madam Priya. But Priya remained simple. This is not just a story. It is a reminder that you never lose when you give from the heart. Priya was just an auto rickshaw driver with a kind heart. But that small act of kindness opened the door to a new life. So the next time you have the chance to help someone, do it. Not because of what you might get back, but because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes that is enough to make heaven move on your behalf.